welcome to The Other Three Amigos, Las Damas, your weekly unofficial SSE Airtricity Women's Premier Division podcast with Declan McCormack, Eileen Ring and John O'Sullivan. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. So sit back, put the feet up, because it's TOTAP time.
On this week's Las Damas, when is one sub one too many? The PFAI survey identifies the worst dressing room and pitch in the SSE Airtricity Women's Premier Division last season. We look back on the second round of group games from the Avenir Sports Women's All-Ireland Cup 2024. We look ahead to next week's league games. Eileen makes a plea on behalf of Shins everywhere. And on this week's Las Damas, John tells us what is comparable to hanging a Van Gogh in your bathroom. Hello and welcome to Las Damas Season 3, Episode 8, Episode 196 of the full TOTAP catalogue. We are an award-winning podcast. We are now on Patreon. Patreon.com/TOTAP will find us. As always, we would ask you to retweet the podcast if you can, as it is very important to help us grow, especially as this is a new League of Ireland, Women's League of Ireland podcast. So the more retweets and help we can to grow it, the better. And our DMs are always open. Now, guys, I haven't told you, but I did get an interesting DM this week that I'm going to throw to you in a minute. But as always, my guys are, firstly, the queen of Irish podcasting, not just football podcasting now, Irish podcasting in general. Eileen Ring. How are we doing, Eileen?
I'm very, very good. And yourselves?
Can't complain now. Can't complain. Although I probably will in a minute about numerous things, but look,
absolutely
we'll
you will.
That settle for me. There's one tweet caught my eye today, I have to say. John O'Sullivan is also with us. John, how are you on this fine first summer's night? Well, the first Sunday summer anyway.
It's
first
brilliant.
Sunday summer.
Yeah, all good. All good.
Is that right? That's not proper English, is it? The first summer Sunday? No, the first Sunday of summer.
Yeah.
That's probably what I was trying to say, but look. Anyway, we'll move on rather than talk about my diction for an hour. Guys, this week in my diction. Oh my god!
Not tonight, Declan. That's more a men's pod kind of talk now, please.
I'm just going to ignore it. I will leave it in. I won't cut it out, but I'm just going to keep moving on, you know. Definitely, because as you said, we don't want to turn this into our men's pod where anything could happen and anything could be said. Right. This week in Irish women's football, we had, I guess it was kind of, I don't know, is it a bizarre situation or what, but we had this situation arise during the week where it turned out that in the league game away to Bohemians, Cork City had made an extra substitution, John, and it kind of, nobody knew it was happening, and it came out of the blue. The FAI released a statement saying there had been a disciplinary process. Cork City had been warned basically about their future conduct. My gut feeling at the time was that Cork City had gotten away with it a little bit. I don't think you agree with me, so can we hash it out live for the listeners?
Well, no, I actually did agree with you at the start, but I don't now because I found out what actually happened. No, I thought we'd gotten away with one as well. It's at the time, kind of everyone, I suppose when we heard about it, we kind of felt, look, it's down to the bench to be sorting that out. But it does seem that the bench actually asked the fourth official if there was another substitution left, and they were told yes. So in that situation, it kind of muddies the water a little. So I think it's kind of a little bit less clear where the responsibility lies.
So look, basically for people who don't know what happened, Cork City used 4 substitution windows to make 5 subs. Now you're allowed to make 5 subs, but you have to do it in 3 windows. Half-time isn't a window, and if somebody has a concussion, that's not considered a window either. So basically, John, they made 1 substitution too many. I think it was in the 92nd minute. They were accused of gaining an unfair advantage, bringing the game into disrepute. All this these charges were leveled against them. They fought their case, they won their case, and as I said, they got off with a warning. I think Bowes went hard to get the game overturned and to be awarded the game 3-0, which they're quite entitled to do. I would expect my club to do the same thing. It went in Cork City's favour. To me, it feels like a warning is too little, but to award Bohs a 3-0 victory would be too much. You know, I guess I'd be fining Cork City some figure and moving on.
Yeah, I think that'd be fair enough as well, to be honest. I think the interesting thing about the warning, though, is that because the disciplinary committee actually took action in giving the warning, Bohs can't actually appeal the decision now. I think someone said that, which is I found interesting. But yeah, it's a strange one. Look, and I suppose like Bohs were absolutely entitled to go after it. And like you said, it's one of those, if it was against us, I'd be screaming for it. The fact that it's got in our favour, I'd quite happily sit hypocritically on my bench and say, you know, the right call was made.
Eileen, I guess you're fully in the camp that says the right call was made.
Yeah, I'm going to be a complete hypocrite. Like, if it was against my club, I'd be going mad. But look, it's for my club and it's Bohemian. So, look, obviously, I was from day one. I said in the group I was against you, Jackie, and I was like, no, it's tough luck. Like, but the more about it came out, I think the right call was made, and yeah, just move on. We won the game. I don't think it really affected the game. And lessons learned. Look, and there has to be lessons learned there by City as well. It's just keep track of it themselves, and can't be trusting the officials in this league. Surely they know that by now.
Yeah, and look, I think to be fair to the officials, they took responsibility as well. You know, the fourth official, the referee, both sent in letters of apology to the disciplinary committee saying that they had been wrong, they had made mistakes, and I think it technically came down that the ruling is that it is a technical mistake by the referee, so it almost falls into the same category as not awarding a penalty, and you can't go back and get that penalty back afterwards, and this is the way it has fallen. I think a lot of that is down to City's representation at the hearing as well. That's what I was led to understand anyway. But look, as I said, nobody knew it was happened until it was over and the FAI released a statement informing the world. So it's interesting that they decided to do that. And but as I said, open and honest conversation is always good and to be appreciated. Last week, guys, we spoke about the player of the month and how it related to the team of the week and how the two didn't really correspond. And then somebody contacted me during the week to inform me that the player of the month is picked by the managers within the league. They vote on it at the end of the month. And the team of the week, as we know, is picked by Stevie Wonder and Helen Keller. So the two bear no resemblance between each other. So just wanted to clarify that for people listening. But Eileen, you've always said that the player of the month is far more reflective of what has gone on than, say, the team of the week has. And no, at least now we know why it's the managers that are selecting that player.
Yeah, very much. And like, not just the winner, but the 6 nominees for it every month. Like, there's never going to be much to give between them. So yeah, of course, now that makes an awful lot more sense, because I just thought there was someone in the FAI not watching matches, but then they decided to go back and watch them all together. So no, it makes sense that the nominations and the players being put forward for that is coming from people who are watching every game every week, to be fair.
We're going to have another go at Bohs now, unfortunately for them. The PFAI survey came out during the week. Facilities survey. It was based on last season. Players voting on the facilities that they played in last season. The women's side of the survey wasn't given much coverage. I have gone looking for the survey. I've tried the PFAI website. I've tried various places, and I can't actually find the survey itself. So just going on what was reported in the press, and basically the main point from the women's side of the survey was that the players in the division voted Dalymount Park bottom of both the dressing room and pitch rankings. So Eileen, I know you've coached in the league and you have experience of the dressing rooms at Dalymount Park and that. Is it as bad as what this survey would indicate it is?
Now, full disclosure, when I coached in the league, Bohemians weren't in it, but due to, I used to always go to the games with my brother, so I actually had a memory on my Instagram the other day of me in the Daily Mount Park setting up the dressing room, and I
Right.
can confirm it's an absolute, it's a dive, like it's really bad, like
Right.
their home dressing room isn't so bad, but like I think you have to go through like, it's third world stuff. Like it's desperate. Like it really is. I'm not surprised. Like Talca Park it's a grand. Like Ferry Carrick Park is grand. Turner's Cross is actually very nice. Obviously Tala's very very nice. Galway really good facility. So like I'm not surprised to see that Daily Mount, because everywhere else is decent. Like, do you know what I mean? Some of them might be on the smaller side or whatever. And that's just due to age, I think. But yeah, like I'm not surprised to hear that. Maybe a little bit surprised about the pitch, because it never looks that bad to me anyway. But I suppose, to be fair, most pitches in the league are grand. I was surprised Cork City weren't lower on it, seeing as like who knows where you're going to, what dressing room you're going to be in when you're coming to Cork. Like you could be anywhere around the county. Too soon?
Oh yeah, let's not speak of the war at the moment, but if anybody wants pitch updates and Turner's Cross updates, maybe tune into our men's pod on Wednesday. We'll probably have plenty. John, yeah, I mean, the pitch at Daily Mount always looks fine from the streaming point of view, and even when you're up there, it doesn't look like it's playing that badly. But I think it was voted by the men as well as the worst or the second worst pitch in. Sorry, it wasn't. Both Derry and Dundalk were below it, but they're both artificial pitches. So it was the worst grass-based pitch voted by the men in the Premier Division as well. So maybe the surface isn't as good there as we all think it might be.
Yeah, obviously not. If when it's being voted that low, I was a bit surprised that the women's vote didn't pick Athlone as well, or maybe even DLR, given the amount of overlap there is with the rugby at the start of the season. But yeah, actually, like Daily Mount always looks really well, so I was a bit surprised that was. Now, the only thing maybe the size of it. It is a massive pitch. But the playing surface itself looks fine, or always looked fine. Obviously not, though, if you're down there on the grass.
Yeah, I mean, obviously underfoot is obviously different than how it looks. And finally, guys, this week, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about Ciara Mack being on the Cork City Club podcast, and, you know, she was given an hour or so to discuss her career and that. And this week, Pearl Slattery was given a dedicated episode of the Shelburne Club podcast. It was only Pearl. There was no reference to the games that they had played. Eileen, it's fantastic to hear from Pearl. It was a really, really good interview. You got a great insight into what she's been through to get to the top level of the game in this country. And, you know, we just said we'd mention it because there's very few of the female players getting that kind of exposure. So when they do, we do like to point it out, and if anybody wants to listen to it, it is on the 1895. And as we said previously, Ciara McNamara is on the official Cork City podcast, which is the Rebel Army podcast, if anybody wants to tune in and listen to that. But as I said, Eileen, great to hear and see these players getting exposure.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I haven't listened, full disclosure, to the Ciara McNamara one. Sorry, Ciara, that's nothing against you. But I listened to the Pearl one.
Eileen is bitter.
Very bitter. I listened to the Pearl one this morning, actually, on my run, because you had told me that was really good. And you got such, like, I didn't even see my run go, to be honest. Like, she's just such an interesting character, and I think an interesting story. And do you know what really stood out to me from it? And I think a lot of, like, maybe parents in particular and just younger players can listen, like, do you know that she never was really aware of like Irish underage setups and that football could maybe be a career and things like that. And so she always just played because she loved the game. And like, that's something when you see her now, and anytime you listen to her, even in interviews, that really comes through, I think, from her. I just thought it was really interesting because I think there's so much pressure players put on themselves internally. I think parents put on players, to the players, parents put on clubs about game time, stuff like that. And I think just go back, like if you're a parent of a player, like a younger player in the league, just go and listen to that interview, because she's just said she's just really experienced and I think she actually speaks quite well of her own mother, like that she never kind of said a word on the sideline. She was just there to support her. And instead, I just think the way kind of game is going now, and we're all hearing these stories, I just think it's a really good interview to listen to for any young player anywhere in the league, because as I said, she's had an incredible career, and it's probably a sign as well that maybe you don't always have to play at underage internationals to have a really good career. And to be, look, she's when you look back in 20 years and you talk about the Women's National League, you're going to talk about Pearl Slattery. And because for me, she's kind of transcended our league here, and she's probably a really familiar face to support as a men's league as well. And I don't think there's many players in our league that are like that, apart from like international players. So I think for that reason, yeah, look, as I said, I've great time for her. I think she's an incredible ambassador for our game, and yeah, I'd highly recommend anyone to go and listen to that podcast.
Yeah, the one that jumped out at me was the league title that they won that day that PLR collapsed against Galway in the last game of the season. But was it DLR? Sorry, not DLR. Peamount's second last game, home game, was supposed to be played in Talca Park, and Pearl was just like, it's not being played here. I don't care if I have to go out into the centre circle and sit on the pitch. This game is not being played in Talca Park, and it was going to be played there because the TV cameras wanted to be there, and PRL Park wasn't suitable, and they said they'd play it in Talca, and it was just like, Pearl was just like, no, it's not happening, and that's it. And she spoke about a phone call she had with Mark Scanlon, who was director of the League of Ireland. But Pearl works for the FAI as well. Like, so they're both working probably in the same office, or certainly down the corridor from each other. And she's standing up for what she believes is right, for what's correct for her club, John. And she's just not having it. And it sounds like it was a one-woman crusade. Now, I'm sure she had support from the rest of the teammates and everything else, but it sounded like a one-woman crusade to ensure that Peamount did not avail of the facilities at Talca Park, or more importantly to her, that they did not win the league or increase their chances of winning the league by winning a game in Talca Park. And I just thought it was, I don't know what the word is, it was just ballsy. It's probably, forgive me, but that's probably the word that comes to mind,
No, but sure, like, I think that's Pearl Slattery, isn't it? Though, I mean, she shells true and true, and she wouldn't give an inch for to anyone else for her club. And look, again, like, I think part of the reason that so many men's fans do take such an interest in the women's Premier Division and shells in that is, like, Pearl was also at the forefront of the Save Talca Park campaign, and like, they're constantly, again, even though she was working for the FAI and possibly, blurred lines here and there, but look, she's shells true and true, an absolute legend of the game here. And yeah, no, you'd love to have her at your club.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was hoping nobody was going to mention the Save Talca Park thing, because
you don't want to save it.
Like, it just makes no sense. It genuinely doesn't, in terms of facilities and what we're trying to do in this country. I mean, both those clubs should be in a redeveloped Dalymount Park, a top class facility in Dalymount Park. But you can't have a top-class facility in Dalymount Park and have another one 3 or 5 kilometres down the road in Talca Park. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'd say the same about Cork. Musgrave Park and Turner's Cross are within spitting distance of each other. There's no need for the two of them. It should be one municipal facility. And I'll always be like that, no matter where. It's not an anti-Dublin thing. It's not an anti-Shelburne thing. It's just in my head. It doesn't make much sense. But look, I don't want to upset all our Shelburne listeners by going down that road now. So
basically, demolish Talca Park.
We'll move on.
Yeah, just because we're homeless, Declan, there's no need to.
Yeah, we're not homeless. We're far from homeless. We have a home. It's just closed for a couple of games. We'll see. We'll see. Time to move on. So, in the under-17s this week, Group A, Shelburne beat Drogheda United. That game I mentioned last week between Shamrock Rovers and Bohemians finished 0-0. And Longford beat Finn Harps 2-0 in Longford. Group B, Treaty beat Galway United 1-0. Peamount beat DLR 3-2. And in Group C, CK and Bray drew 0-0. Kerry won 3-0 away in Cove, and Waterford beat Cork City 2-0 down in the Daisha. The under-19 saw Group A, Finn Harps 2, Peamount 1. Group B, Galway 2, Athlone 1, DLR 2, Sligo 1, and Shamrock Rovers beat Bray Wanderers 5-1. In Group C, CK United and Waterford drew 1-1. Wexford won 3-1 away at Treaty, and Cork City beat Cove Ramblers at home this afternoon. I guess there's nothing really massive there that jumps out or anything, John, from the underage stuff. As I said, that big game in the under-17s between Bows and Shamrock Rovers finished 0-0. It's probably a good result for Bows, considering Shamrock Rovers were 5 from 5, had scored 31 or 32 goals in those 5, so to keep them scoreless is probably a very good result for Bows.
Absolutely. Rovers been absolutely flying, so anyone that can halt that run at all, it's like really impressive. And I suppose the other thing that did jump out at me there again is just to give credit to CK United. They are like they're after a lot of tough years, they've picked up a lot of positive results this year, and it's great to see that the league as a whole is that a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, no, that is true. We will move on to the senior games. This week saw the second round of games in the Avenir Sports All-Ireland Cup. Group A, guys, we'll start with Group A, obviously. Linfield 2, Bows 1, and Lisburn 0, Peamount 6. That basically means that Lisburn are out. They can't progress. And Peamount and Bohemians play each other in the last game of the season. So look, presuming that Linfield will beat Lisburn, as looks most likely, that means then that Bohemians will have to win away at Peamount in the last game. Bows were 1 up away at Linfield, ended up losing 2-1. We couldn't see it because there was no stream, and Tegan Ruddy was sent off as well. But again, we have no idea why. It's hard to judge, John, when we couldn't see it. Obviously, we could see Peamount win 6-0 today. They were very, very comfortable. What's your overall assessment of the two games of the weekend?
Look, I think, haven't seen the goals, which is all we've got to go on. I think Bows dropped the points based on an OG, which they'll probably be disappointed with. But yeah, I think you can see Linfield not beating Lisburn after Peamount went up there today and won so comfortably. So look, it's good though that the last game in that group, has a lot riding on it, and Bows have to go there and win. So hopefully it'll make for an entertaining game.
Yeah, Eileen, what did you make of Peamount today? They seem to change their system a little bit, and look, fair play to Lisburn. They did put on a stream. It was at pitch level, but it was decent, and they had commentary, and they made an effort, unlike their other northern colleagues who didn't make any effort to stream games. So they should be given credit for that. As I said, it looked like Peamount changed system a little bit. Karen Duggan played centre back from what we could tell, and they took their time to get going. They scored the second goal just almost on the stroke of half time, but second half they came out and comfortably put Lisburn to bed, Eileen.
Yeah, I think they were pretty comfortable for the whole game. Look, as you said, it's kind of difficult to see what kind of system they were playing. It looked like there was 3 at the back with Karen at centre, and that freed Jetta. She seemed to kind of be playing wide right. And look, Jetta traditionally was a winger. Like, she was a very, very good winger. She's lightning quick. With UCD Waves for years, she was excellent. She was really, really good. So I can see why, when they're struggling to score goals, that maybe she's a creative outlet. But I don't know. It's a hard one to kind of judge it, isn't it? Because, like, not being disrespectful to Lisburn, but they're poor. But were Galway trialling that ahead of, or were Peamount trialling that ahead of Galway next week? I'm not sure. Would you be going 3 at the back? Like I said, it'll be an interesting one to see how they play next week. Is it something, or will he just go back to what they've had for the last while, with Jetta and Ciara Maher at centre half? So I suppose that's kind of one to keep an eye on next week, because there's no reason for him to kind of change his system unless it's something he wants to do. But look, they obviously have Champions League as well coming up this summer, so maybe it's something he's looking at, where Jetta's pace would be a big, big outlet in that. But yeah, look, I think Peamount were very, very comfortable. I know they took a while to get going, but does that come down to a little bit of maybe lack of confidence in front of goal as well, because they have struggled in that aspect. But once they got going, I think they were very, very good. And look, Peamount will be looking at that game like about 5 other teams will be looking at their game saying this is going to kickstart our season now. And obviously it can't kickstart everybody's season, but for now, I think there'll be 5 or 6 teams after this week saying, oh, look, here we go now. But as I said, I don't think that obviously can't be the case, but no, comfortable for them. So yeah, impressive enough.
John, is there any chance that this is James O'Callaghan playing the biggest game of poker he can with Phil Trill, knowing that Phil will be looking at this game, analysing it, and just putting doubt in his mind and giving him other things to think about?
Possibly. I hadn't even thought of that until Eileen started mentioning it, to be honest. Yeah.
I didn't either.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one. Yeah, it was a strange setup from, like, because we're very used to seeing Peamount playing a particular fashion, and yeah, but I suppose they were so comfortable and probably confident going into the game after the Bohemians win against Lisburn as well, that they're probably, said, look, this is one where we can try something and see how it goes. And it's very hard to tell if it worked, though, because Lisburn, to be honest, it was quite a gulf there.
John, how did you feel about Karen Duggan at centre half? Tell everyone.
Sorry.
What was it like?
Sorry, I said it was like hanging a Van Gogh in your bathroom. Yeah, I forgot I put that in the chat, actually. Yeah, I know she played well, but she was so comfortable there. It's gas, like. But no, Piedmont actually they were so comfortable. It's very hard to take anything from that game, really. But I do think the fact that they scored 6 when they have been struggling in front of goals is something that they'll take great heart from.
Interesting. In Group B, guys, it was Shelbourne 3, Cork City 0, Wexford 6, Cliftonville 0. We'll start with the Shelbourne City game, I guess. I mean, look, Shells were 3-0 up after 25 minutes, and it just kind of, they almost coasted home after that, John, really, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a very poor start from City's point of view. Obviously, look, Danny rang the changes and Shelbourne went very strong in the game as well. But like Jim McQuinn, scored 3 goals within 25-30 minutes, and probably missed 2 really good chances as well before she scored the first. So look, she was an absolute nightmare to handle. It's hard to tell if City really got into it or if Shells took their foot off the pedal, but the second half was more competitive. Some of the changes, City, kind of, I won't say got back into it, but settled a little bit. And to be fair, they kept on trying to play football, but I think it's probably a good exercise for Danny. He's had a look at a lot of different players now, and look, he had hinted already that he was going to use that the competition for that. But yeah, look, Shelbourne coasted through it. It was we said as well in the chat that a couple of weeks ago, I think Eileen was at her deck. I might be robbing your credit for you for this, but that Orla Mahoney was one of those players that you wouldn't realise how good she was until she wasn't there. And I do think that was, that was the game that we're kind of going, Christ, the amount of work she does, the way she just, controls that sitting deep. Badly missed her against Shelbourne. But again, look, I don't think Danny was going into the All-Ireland Cup this year, gung-ho for results. He had made it clear he was going to ring the changes for this game and get some game time and minutes into players that probably came into the squad late.
Eileen, John said there that obviously Danny made changes. Owen Weirin went relatively strong, to be fair. Obviously Hannah Healy came in, but I mean, you're not weakening any side really to bring in the likes of Mia Dodd and Hannah Healy into it, Just from a Cork City point of view, did some players put their hands up for future inclusion, or did some players actually play themselves out of future thinking?
I certainly don't think any players put their hands up, to be honest. I think as a manager, obviously Danny's probably hearing a lot from these players in the last few weeks about game time and stuff, and I understand that, and he gave them an opportunity. And look, obviously, like, we were well beaten, and like for me, it was that once Shells went 3 up, they were kind of cruising. It's hard because I think to be fair to the players that came in, I think there was 9 changes, so like they're all coming in a little bit cold, so like that's a factor as well. But at the same time, like, look, there's going to be videos there, and the reality is if players go to him in the next few weeks saying, why am I starting? He's probably going to show clips from that game. And that's football. Like, and it is a case of, like, it's not that everyone was atrocious, far from it. Everyone had really good moments, but there were some very poor moments as well. And I thought we were really poor in possession. Like, and from the other side, I thought Shelburne probably moved the ball the best I've seen them move it, especially in that period, like maybe the opening 40 minutes. They moved the ball really quick. They weren't holding on to it for too long. They obviously could see very, very early. They decided early that Gemma Quinn is going to outrun this back four all day long. To be fair to Shauna, I do think she tried to keep up with her, but Gemma Quinn is incredibly strong as well as being that fast. So she was just able to brush her aside, like, and I think once Shelburne identified that was there, that threat was there, they just kept going. They just kept releasing her early, like, and we just couldn't deal with that. And maybe that comes back to maybe a bit of problem solving. Does the line have to move back? Does that come from the sideline, or can that be done on the pitch? But yeah, I think, look, Danny's probably going to go back to the team that had been starting, I suppose, pre the All Ireland Cup. And as I said, those girls, unfortunately, are probably going to have to go back to waiting for an opportunity, but they'll get their opportunities. And maybe it'll be easier if you're one of those players and you're coming into a side, I suppose, that's a little bit more settled than a fully kind of changed 11 as well, going to Talca Park. I don't think that's an easy thing, to be fair. And it was much improved in the second half.
Yeah, and look, you've spoken a lot this year about what you see as Shelburne's issue in the final third. As I said, Kiva Keenan spoke about it after the Rovers game. Pearl Slattery mentioned it in her interview on the podcast. Gemma Quinn actually spoke about it in pieces she did after the game on Saturday. Is Gemma Quinn's pace and power, Eileen, the answer to that issue for Shelburne, or is that too simplistic to say?
It's probably a little bit too simplistic to say, but for me, at the moment, she is that answer, but they have to give her a decent run in there, because what he was doing is he's giving her a game and then he takes her out, and then you need a run of games as a centre forward. And it's obviously now her tail's going to be up after that game, so you need to stick with her for Wexford. Look, other sides will manage her a little bit better. I think even as the second half went on, maybe like we eventually did, but it's too late after she scored a hat-trick. She's obviously incredibly fit. She's incredibly fast, strong, powerful. So like, she's everything you want in that player up top. I don't think she's going to have enough joy just running in behind backlines all over the league. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, we've spoke quite highly of defences in the league this season, but for me, I think she should be given a run of games. She's proven since she's come into the league, and you have to bear in mind she's a player who's come into the league quite late in her playing career as well. I'd say she was probably like maybe in her early 30s coming into the league. She's done incredibly well, and she's done really well on the big stage. Like, obviously, like that cup final goal last year was an incredible moment for her. So yeah, I just think just give her a couple of games and see where you go, because right now it's, other than that, they're kind of just plugging a gap up there and putting players maybe who are not as naturally instinctive to kind of a number 9 role, say, as she would be. So yeah, for me, I think they should give her a couple of games anyway.
John, I can see you nodding your head in agreement there with what Eileen was saying. And obviously Cork City played a high line like they always do. Cork City want to be aggressive and they want to be on the front foot, which means you play a high line. They gave her all half a Talca Park to run into on Saturday. She did say in the interview afterwards, and she said it herself, I'm not great with my feet. You know, other players like to play 1-2s and ticky-tackies. That's not me. I like to run in behind. I like to be powerful. I like to be strong. I like to do those, what I call kind of traditional number 9 type things, you know. Eileen just said there that the rest of the league isn't going to give her that room to run in behind. So does that then, when Owen Wearing is sitting down to pick a team, does that actually go against her to a large degree?
I suppose, yeah, if you had a lot of options, probably. But I think the problem, and Eileen's touching it there, is that Shells don't have a huge amount of other options. And I think she's done enough now to justify getting a run of games. And while some of this, you know, there was an element of just outpacing players as well. Like, her first goal was just, you know, a short hop to the front post, a clever finish, you know. So if she's shown as well to a degree that if Shells can get deliveries into the box, you know, she's got that, you know, kind of, you know, a finish in her as well. Depends on how Owen wants to set up and play, but yeah, Shells have struggled for goals this season, and I think they've got an obvious, at least, what would you say, someone to try at least anyway now, and I'd agree with Eileen. Just a run of games is badly needed for her, just to see how she goes, because they don't really have enough options, it seems.
Okay, cool. Eileen, I got a question DM'd, so the sender of said question will remain anonymous. As I said, did get a DM on Twitter from somebody wanting to know if Shelbourne fans were also banned from attending this game on Saturday.
And you know, it's interesting because we spoke last week about how poor the attendance was for the Shamrock Rovers game, and like they made I thought like players and like backroom staff made like a pointed effort like to try to get people out, and it was terrible attendance again. It was really bad attendances all over this camp, all over this competition. But yeah, look, it's something that obviously Shelbourne get a lot of credit for having very good support for their women's side. I wonder, and I could be completely wrong, and I could be proven wrong in the coming weeks, did they get a lot of support because they were very successful and their men's team weren't that good, and now the men's team are flying high-ish, that maybe they aren't getting to support the women's team, but as the men's team fall off in the coming weeks, maybe they'll come back to the women's team again. Who knows?
Oh, it's an interesting theory.
I just wonder, like, because I don't see why else there's been a drop-off, like.
Yeah. It makes sense. There is some semblance of sense in that, all right. See, that's why you're the queen of Irish podcasting, you know. This is the stuff, this is the quality insight that we get from you. Something you said regarding Peamount a minute ago, Eileen, and it's what I have written down here about Wexford. Is this the result to kickstart Wexford's season?
I'll tell you in 2 weeks, but it could be. I look again, as Peamount will be thinking, as Shamrock Rovers will be thinking, they'll all be thinking it's the result to kickstart their seasons. Look, they were excellent, but it's not. I don't want to speak too highly of Wexford without really putting a high emphasis on that. Was some of the worst defending I've ever seen in my life. It was quite poor. Like, it is that line, like, are Wexford that good or were Cliftonville that bad? And I think it's probably a bit of both. Yeah, they were really impressive. There were some excellent goals.
Well, I was going to say, to be fair, like Cliftonville had drawn at home with Shelbourne, you know?
Yeah, and like it's obviously there was no stream of that game, so we didn't get to see it. And like Shelbourne maybe they hadn't gone totally that strong, but they were strong enough side up there. And I know that Shelbourne found them very physical. They didn't think it was a great game or anything, but I know, like, I didn't see any of that from Cliftonville today. Like, do you know, or yesterday. I watched it today. That's why I'm being confused. But no, look, Wexford were excellent, and I think, like, I suppose it's getting players individually as well. Like Kyola Bergen obviously gets a hat-trick. She's another player who's been away with that under-19 side that are successful. So, you know, it's about building that up. Emily Corbett got 2 really, really good goals. And Ellen Malloy, I'd say, is that her first goal of the season? I suppose they probably haven't scored very many goals this season. So look, I think a lot of positives from Wexford, but it's Shelbourne next week for them, like, isn't it? So I suppose maybe ask me next week if it's kickstarted their season or not. But they were good, but I don't want to kind of, I suppose, sing their praises too much. A, because you'll abuse me for it, and B, because like I just don't want to get ahead of myself either. Like,
okay, I would never abuse you for anything. Well, maybe not. John, in Group C, Shamrock Rovers beat DLR 4-0. I mean, it was just pretty straightforward, standard, run-of-the-mill game performance result, really, was it?
Yeah, Shamrock Rovers were excellent. To be fair to them, they moved the ball brilliantly. Probably the best I've seen them play so far this year. They were really, really good. Lovely patterns of play. Like, they were in complete control right through the game. The only thing I'd say, and again, it's not to take from their performance, but like the 4 goals were poor. To be fair, very poor from DLR's point of view. I don't know that other teams will give up goals as easily as DLR gave up goals. Like, Rovers had fantastic approach play, but you know, the goals really were all very easily avoided. But again, look, Rovers were just they were well in control, well on top. Be disappointing from DLR's point of view, and I think I think it goes to show, like, again, what a loss Jess Gleason is to that side while she's out injured. But Rovers were brilliant, to be fair. But again, it's one of those again where was it Rovers being brilliant, or how much of the influence of that was DLR being poor on the day? It's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's interesting again, Eileen. Shamrock Rovers have won 4-0, and maybe there is a bias in this podcast. Who might say that we're not biased against Shamrock Rovers, but I mean, they've won 4-0, and John is still calling into question whether they would have scored those goals against another side. And he said they've played very well, the best they've played this season, but he's still sounding unsure about them long term.
Yeah, I'm completely biased against. Well, I'm not biased. I'm completely honest in my dislike of Shamrock Rovers. Like, there's no ambiguity there. Let's be honest. But look, I didn't watch this full game. I watched bits and pieces of it today. I thought they were excellent. No matter how much I dislike them, I'll still be honest. I thought they were excellent. Yeah, I can see what he's saying about the goals, but at the same time, I think they created a huge amount. I think Leo Leary and Joy Ralph are they're a really good duo for them. There's some nice interplay between the two of them, and Anya O'Gorman's always going to score a lot of goals every season. And obviously, then it's like what I suppose I've probably more time for Shamrock Rovers this year because they're really leaning heavily into their academy players as well, and that's brilliant to see because they've a really good academy setup, and that's what they should have done last year. And probably would have been a bit better received. But obviously, the young one who scored their fourth goal she's only, what is she, 15, like 15 and a half, say? So that's incredible, and that's a big win for their academy. And I think over the result and everything, and that was set up by another academy player. So I think that's a big positive for them. I don't know, because I still think with Shamrock Rovers, I know obviously they had a big win, but you're looking at it in an overall season so far and they haven't impressed up till now. But they just have so many good players all over the pitch that I do think they're capable of, as I said, of beating any team and beating them comfortably on their day. But I don't know if they'll be able to do that consistently. That would be my big thing. I still would question maybe kind of that Kylie Murphy, Pearl Slattery, Karen Duggan type of leader in their dressing room. I don't know if that's there. Someone who's who's been in that club, who knows everything that club is about, who has the soul of their club in them nearly. And I think that makes such a big difference. And for a successful team, I think that's so important. And look, maybe that's why maybe we won't see as I do think Shamrock Rovers will be quite dominant over the coming years, but I think it's going to take a couple of years because I think that's huge, that big leader, that, as I said, someone, and Anya O'Gorman, of course, she's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but it's said she's not Shamrock Rovers to the core. Do you know what I mean? She doesn't have 10 years, know everything that everyone in and around the club, and as I said, it's kind of, what was it? I suppose it's maybe that just need that kind of, I suppose, time, really, isn't it, to kind of bed in and know everything that club is about and what it stands for and be able to push on like that. So for me, that's the obvious thing looking from the outside, what they look to be really successful, I think.
John, you can blame Eileen for this now, because I had decided about 3 minutes ago I wasn't touching it. I was leaving it alone. And then Eileen mentioned the fact that Ella Kelly scored for Shamrock Rovers, and no, my head just won't allow me to move forward without mentioning it. So, and Eileen is laughing because she knows what she's after doing to me. Shamrock Rovers, and look, I want to be clear here, right? It's an incredible achievement to score at 15 years, 6 months, 2 days, score a senior goal, be an academy graduate. It's an incredible achievement. But Shamrock Rovers did tweet, Academy star Ella Kelly becomes the youngest goal scorer in League of Ireland history, age 15 years, 6 months, 2 days. It's not a League of Ireland goal, John, is it?
Why, Declan? Why?
I know. None of us want to do it. None of us want to do it. But this is what we're here for. We're here to deal with the big issues. The big issues is what we deal with.
I think it's just a phrasing thing. I think what they're trying. Does that include men and women? I assume it does. I think that's what they're trying to say. She's the youngest goal scorer ever for a League of Ireland team. But yeah, look, it wasn't technically it wasn't a League of Ireland goal, but I don't think that. I think it's just badly phrased. Fair play to the girl.
She'll get one. She'll get one in the coming weeks, Declan. Just to.
I'm not like I said. I'm not stealing a lollipop off a child. So that's
nobody wants to steal a lot. And this is why I asked you, because you said they phrased it poorly and whatnot, and you're still giving all the credit, and that's we all want to do that. But it just needed to be addressed, and I know we have addressed it, and we're not taking anybody's lollipops, as you said. So we'll move quickly on to Treaty. Obviously, Eileen, they won again, 2-0 away at Crusaders. Delana Frisian and Van Dulder again with the 2 goals. They're becoming a goal scoring double act pretty frequently now, Eileen, and Treaty are still unbeaten.
Yeah, obviously, look, as you said, there's no stream, but when I saw the 2 goal scorers, like I did you nearly expect them to be the goal scorers now at this stage, don't they? And they're 2 midfielders, so we've spoken very well, especially of Friesen on this podcast. I think she's excellent. Not taken away from the other girl, of course, she's very good as well. But look, they're unbeaten. Are they unbeaten this season still? So
yeah, unbeaten. Yeah.
And it kind of looks in that group that Shamrock Rovers and Treaty will probably go through. The way you would think, the way results have went. So it's a big result. It's not easy travelling either. That's a big trip for them, so that's not easy. So a brilliant result for them, and it's just a shame there was no stream for it.
It is a big trip. They were up and down today, John, and just in terms of the group, DLR are out. Shamrock Rovers and Treaty both have 4 points. Crusaders have 3 points, and Shamrock Rovers go away to Crusaders on the final match day. So it's really there in Treaty's hands. They just have to beat DLR and they're through. No questions asked.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think Treaty will even need to beat DLR. I think Rovers will turn Crusaders over, so they won't even need it. But yeah, I actually at this stage I fully expect Rovers and Treaty to both finish on 7 points in the group, and both go through.
Yeah, it will be down to goal difference then as to who would finish top. And my understanding is the 4 teams who finish top will play the 4 second place teams. So there is a little bit of a seeding thing going on for the quarterfinal draw. And as I said, teams will be separated by goal difference, not head to head. As somebody told me at 6:30 tonight, and I did all my preparation based on head to head standings. And then somebody sent me the actual rule book about 3 minutes before we started recording. The first thing I saw was all ties will be settled on goal difference. So that's where we are anyway. Finally, Eileen, Group D. I mean, look, Galway, Athlone both won, both sitting 6 points, both are qualified. There's not really a whole lot to take out of either of the 2 games, really, was there?
Kate Thompson's strike was quality. The first goal for Galway. Really good. Again, look, Galway were Galway, I suppose, at this point. I thought they were comfortable the whole time, and I think Glentoran are decent as well. But I think Galway's fitness it's a big thing, and they press really high, and they're still doing it. And that, I suppose, they've scored their last 3 goals in the last 10 minutes, and it was purely a fitness thing. But again, I think I mentioned their decision making in the final third last week. And it's Jenna Slattery's goal, and it's Isabella Belichick has come up from the back, and 99% of players in the league are taking the shot on, and she lays it off, and it's said, I think, for a manager, they just must be fun to coach at the moment. So yeah, no, they were very, very good. And Athlone and Sligo was a great game, really, really good game of football. Little bit of controversy at the end as well, which is always entertaining. Sligo, I don't know, did you watch it? But Sligo were given a free kick, and I couldn't say one way or the other if it was a penalty or a free kick, but they got the free kick, and I did see before the stream cut off one of their coaching staff making a beeline for the referee, and subsequently I saw a red card on LOI Connect, so he obviously a couple of choice words for the official. But it was a good game, in fairness, and Sligo are good, but I think the thing with Athlone is they have big strength and depth. They made a lot of changes, and I thought they were very, very good, very good. But at the same time, when Sligo came back into it, they did look like kind of grabbing something. So no, it was a good game. But that Galway Athlone game, that's the last one of that group. It's kind of, what do they do? Do they put out full sides? You kind of don't know what they'll do. But no, two good games in that group, to be fair. But yeah, Sligo, as a Cork City fan, I was concerned watching Sligo today, to be honest, because I think they're a very, very good side.
John, Athlone will have to beat Galway on the last day if they wish to finish top of the group. I don't think it's something that will overly bother them, but as Eileen said, both managers they can play anything from their under 17s to their first team and anything in between. As I said, all doors are open to them going forward.
Yeah, I'd expect both to give a lot of game time to players that might not have featured that much so far this season, because I don't think really it matters to either side if they finish first or second, because they're not going to be afraid of anybody in the rest of the competition regardless of who they draw. So it could go either way. It should be again another good game, last group game, but I do think they'll probably take the pedal off or foot off the pedal a little bit, both teams, because they're already through. They don't really need to worry too much about first or second given the way they're playing so far this season.
So we'll move on, guys, to this. Yeah, so this week I get the good. It's it was kind of hard to come up with good stuff this week, to be honest, because obviously we covered Pearl earlier on, and you don't want to talk about great goals and this kind of stuff. But what I did hear today was during the Peamount game, I know, was it a Peamount substitute? Was it somebody on the bench? Was it maybe a physio or what, but was offering water to one of the players on the pitch? And the player said, no, I'm okay. And she was like, I'll bring it out to you. And she's like, no. And the next thing, then she started saying, if it was a margarita, you'd take it though, wouldn't you? And everybody was laughing. And it was just one of those funny moments when there's stuff happening on the line in a relaxed game. But it's coming back to something that we spoke about previously in Athlone. I'd love to see these open mics just planked. I know it's dangerous because anything can get said, but the open mics around the dugouts have been incredible all year. And, well, where they've happened or where you've been able to hear, but I would love to just take a chance, the league to take a chance and just stick a couple of mics and see what you pick up. I know it's live, I know it's LOI TV live, but take the risk, take the chance, and there will be some great stuff coming out of there. John, you were going to hit us with the bad?
Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on any particular team, but like the defending in the Cliftonville Wexford game, it was just, honest to God, it was so bad. And I know, look, Emily Corbett scored a couple of great goals and Keola Bergen took a couple of her goals very well, but it was like, I was watching the game and all I was sitting there was going, how did they draw with Shelburne? How did these draw with Shelburne? I've never seen anything like it. It was like I don't know if you've ever seen one of those videos where like they get like three professional footballers to play 100 school kids. It had that kind of sense to it. It was bizarre. I've never seen anything like it. So that's my bad this week.
Okay, cool. And Eileen, this week, I didn't get the ugly, so you got it.
Okay, it's a worldwide phenomenon at the moment in football, but it's creeping into the league here. Pull up your fucking socks and wear proper shin guards, will ye? Like, shin guards are in the rule book for a reason. Like, they're in there for a reason, not so that some company has went out and invented shin guards that are smaller than a credit card, and then people have their socks around their ankles. It looks shocking. It's my absolute pet peeve. When I was in school, I remember going out the back school in Blarney, the football pitch used to be out the back of the school, and went out, and the referee called one of the players over. He was like, "Put down your socks," and your man had 2 copybooks because he'd forgot his shin guards. And honestly, I think they would be more effective than some of the shin guards that are worn at the moment. Like, it's desperate. Like. So pull up your socks and get proper shin guards, will you?
I remember like years ago when I started playing first, you had a big, and the shin guard would run from right across the full shin, obviously, and then you used to have little ankle protectors on the bottom of it, and there was a strap then to go around the bottom of your foot and the whole lot, like, you know. And I know they were big and I know they were awkward, but I always felt safe in them. And yeah, it's not good. Like, it's not good to pick up any kind of shin injury. So fair enough. I suppose we better have a quick look ahead to next week before we finish up. Round 5 of the league. Shamrock Rovers are the club who are not playing next week. So the day starts next Saturday. Bows against Treaty, 3 o'clock kickoff in Dalymount Park with its shit pitch and its shit dressing rooms, I mean. Sorry, but like that's what the survey said.
Survey says,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Bows have been, after a promising start to the season, they've been on a kind of a poor run of games, haven't they? So they'll be looking to bounce back. But at the same time, Treaty tails up unbeaten this season, and you would fancy them to get I would fancy them to get a result in Dalymount. Also, like we were saying on this, we were talking about the dodgy podcast, the dodgy predictions, and now we're starting to do predictions. Like, so we're going to get abused, like.
But the dodgy predictions have disappeared, haven't they? Like,
I
the
know,
league,
and now
the
you
league
have us
done
doing
away
it.
with
It's me making dodgy
Yeah.
predictions every week.
that should have been my bad. Jesus, that's way better.
Okay, so Eileen, can I just clarify, when you say you expect Treaty to get something, do you expect them to win the game, or are you just expecting them to not lose the game?
I'm sitting on the fence there. I'm expecting them to not lose the game, Declan. I don't want to be getting abused by people from Limerick, all right? I take the abuse from the Dubs. I like Limerick people, so.
Peamount and Galway then follow that at 5 o'clock in PRL Park. John, this is probably the big game of the day. Well, there's no probably about it. It is the big game of the day. We've already established that Peamount can't afford to lose the game if they want to maintain a challenge. Galway are 4 for 4 so far. Is this a game that you think will put them 5 for 5?
Yeah, it's hard to see it going any other way. The form that Galway have been showing. So yeah, look, it is kind of a. It seems very early in the season to be saying, but it's kind of a must-win for Peamount. Someone has to start hauling Galway back in, and I think Peamount will have ambitions, obviously, to be right at the top of the table. So this is a game where you've got to show what you're made of. But it's very hard to look past Galway at the moment, especially just like they're scoring for fun and the fitness levels, and they just keep going till the end of every game. So Piedmont will have to they'll have to play better than they have at any other point in the season to get anything out of that game, I think. But it's very hard to see a Piedmont draw even.
It is, Eileen, simply because it feels like if Piedmont were to score 2, they could probably only draw the game, and you just probably never see them scoring 3 because Galway just aren't conceding goals. So then it comes down to, like, how do Piedmont actually win the game?
With 3 at the back. Did you not see 3?
By playing poker with Phil Travers.
No, and like I think actually Galway, I don't know, did you see it? They had a clip up on their Twitter of one of their goals against Bows. Did you see that? Like every player on the pitch touched the ball in the lead up, like that's, and actually Phil had retweeted it just with the word identity. So like there's very much method behind the madness. Like they haven't become this good by accident either, like, do you know what I mean? And they don't play the style of football they play by accident. Like it's as I said, a very well coached side, a side that a group of players that very clearly take every bit of information on. But yeah, like for Piedmont, it is hard because it's, as I said, like they're not scoring today aside, they're certainly not scoring freely. In fact, they're probably struggling to score. And then you have a side that are incredibly resound defensively, and then, as you said, score for fun. So like it is hard to see past Galway, but these are games where Piedmont could be Piedmont and just dig out a 1-0 win, and we're all like, where the did that come from? Do you know, like, and that's a history there. Do you know what I mean? And that's what they did so well last year, and that's why they won games. Like, and as league champions, I suppose it's kind of a strange situation to be in, where you're going in as underdogs probably into the game. Like, to most people looking on the league will expect, and that suits Peamount. I think that's why they were as successful as they were last year, because apart from internally, there was no expectation. And I think that's the big thing. That's maybe the one thing that will potentially work in their favour. But I do fancy Galway to win it, to be honest. That being said.
Okay. 6 o'clock then in Wexford. Wexford are home to Shelburne. John, I asked Eileen earlier on, is that 6-0 game that Wexford won at the weekend? Is that something that can kickstart their season, and can they cause Shelburne trouble in this game?
I don't think they can put any stock in the 6-0 win, given the opposition, to be honest.
Okay.
But I do think the fact that Ellen Malloy got on the score sheet, Emily Corbett will gain confidence. I look. Again, Wexford on their day are capable of beating anybody. They have an absolute embarrassment of riches, and it depends on who play. Possibly depends on who Shelburne play up front, because they've struggled for goals as well. And I don't know. I can see Wexford winning this. That might sound mad, but I do think I think they probably just have a little bit more firepower than Shells. And I think it'll be tight, but I do actually see Wexford possibly edging this one. Possibly partly because I also want my prediction for them to be finishing third to be true. But
I was just going to say you're just holding on to that Wexford bias that you have, which you're entitled to do.
I know.
Absolutely no problem with that. Eileen, can you see the same as John? Can you see Wexford causing Shelburne issues and possibly winning this game?
I can see them causing Shelburne issues. I actually think it's going to be a draw. I think it's one of the really big rivalries of the league as well for the last couple of years. Maybe it's died off maybe in the last 2 years, but there is still there's always a little bit of bite in this game. I think Kylie Murphy being out for Wexford is a big loss. But yeah, look, as I said, with their thing today like that, or yesterday, sorry, I do think that it's a big confidence boost, but I also think how Shelburne played in the first half is a big confidence boost for them. So I just think it's going to be a draw. I'll go for a draw. A score draw, to be precise.
Okay. A score draw for no bother whatsoever. At 7 o'clock in Sligo. Eileen, you already mentioned this. Does Sligo's performance against Athlone worries you from a Cork City point of view? City go up there, 3 weeks in a row now they're away from home. Do you think at some stage that the travelling does start to catch up with Cork City? Or am I just making excuses?
Yeah, no, you're not. It's really hard. Like, I had this conversation with my brother the other day because we were talking about obviously the men's team are having to travel a lot at the moment. And I was like, pity about you. Like, do you know what I mean? Well, not him because he works, but like the players are professional. Like the women's players aren't professional and they're having to travel every single weekend. I think it's really hard. I think there'll be certain games that men's team might get overnighted for. The women's team, I presume, won't be overnighted in Sligo. And that's a really long trip. If I could just impress one thing, if Cork City were listening to this, if anyone from Cork City, please don't play a high line against Sligo because Emma Doherty is going to run in behind you all night. Please don't do it, okay? Because if I have to come on here after she's scored a hat-trick from running in behind next week, I'm going to be crying. Like, don't. I know you want to be aggressive, but just don't do it with her up front. But yeah, Sligo are good. They're very good. I see why Declan picked them to be his dark horse. But also City are very good and they're much improved and they will cause headaches for Sligo without a shadow of a doubt. It's just, can they contain Emma Doherty? And yes, they can, and we'll win 3-1.
Yeah, Eileen and her C license have now spoken. So, John, are you as confident as Eileen is?
No, not quite. But I suppose where my head is at as a City fan, I'd probably take a draw now. I do think Sligo are very good, and I think they've not really got a reward yet for how good they've been. Just because of the teams they've come up against, like in the league, they've had a really tough opening in the All Ireland Cup. They've had Galway and Athlone as their opening 2 games. They've pushed Athlone really hard this weekend just gone by, but just haven't gotten the reward. So I think they'll have this game down as a marker that they they'll be all guns blazing for this and expecting to win, which might suit City a little bit, because I think Sligo will probably put a little bit of pressure on themselves. But yeah, look, I'd probably take a draw now, but I hope Eileen's 3-1 prediction is correct.
Yeah, I think just to pick up on what John said there, like Shelburne away, Galway at home again, Treaty away, and then Athlone away. You know, they've played 3 league games and 2 Avenir Sports Women's All-Ireland Cup games, but they're about as 5 of the hardest fixtures as you could possibly come up with. And as John says, that's my fear as well, that there's a result coming for Sligo once they're not playing the top level sides that are currently in the division.
Yeah, and like they've been excellent in all of those games. Like they got obviously a draw in Talca Park. They ran Athlone quite close last night. They ran Galway very close in the All Ireland Cup as well. I know Galway probably were comfortable enough in their league game, but I totally appreciate that. But I think what John said will probably play into City's hands. That are they going to assume because they've put it up to Shelburne, to Galway, to Athlone, that City will be a piece of piss for them? And that's wrong, like, because they won't. Like it said, it's a different City side this year. Look, the reality is, Declan, you know, how long are we doing this podcast now? 3 years. I always am going to predict a Cork City win, okay? Because I am the eternal optimist. And then every single weekend, I'm absolutely gutted. Can't figure out why. Okay, so I'm going to stick with my 3-1, but I do appreciate what you're saying about Sligo.
That's fair enough. Finally then, to wrap it all up, Athlone play DLR at 7:30 in Athlone. I'm going to put my neck on the line here, and John, and say that Athlone will win this game.
That's really brave, Decky. Really brave.
I'm not the pundit, I'm the host, but look, every now and again I am willing to stick my neck out and make a big call.
Yeah, I think it'd be the shock of the season if DLR got anything out of that game. Just the way they've been the last while and how good Athlone are, especially at home.
Eileen, are you, like myself and John, just not giving DLR much of a chance in this?
No, especially the fact that it's in Athlone and the way they're playing at the moment. It's hard to see anything other than a comfortable Athlone win.
That's about it. So, I mean, Eileen is signalling. I think she flicked her hand 5 fingers 3 times, so she means 15-0 to Athlone, I think is what she's going for. But yeah, look, it's a tough place to go. Yeah, it's a tough place to go, and DLR will need all the luck in the world to get something from that game. Guys, that's about it for the pod. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you would like to bring up or get off your chest before we pack it all in?
No, I think I'm happy enough.
I'm pretty content as well in life right now.
Right, guys. Well, on that note,
Declan, I thought the Noel King thing was a joke, and I'm still expecting someone to come back and say it's been a joke. I can't be the only one thinking that. Like,
I thought someone was after Stitch and Fallon up.
It's
crazy stuff.
No, it's brilliant. It's just, look, I mean, 21 years since he managed in the league, 21 years since he managed in, well, when I say in the league, in the men's full-time professional league, left Shelburne and said it was very intense and it was crazy and the rest of it, and he's got into Dundee. It's just a mirror image of Cork City last year. Like, as Eileen said during the week, Liam Buckley can feel very hard done by not to have gotten the shout in Dundalk, you know. It's just mind-boggling stuff. But look, more power to him. With none of us to be crying anyway, that's for sure.
And we won't have to see him next year because we'll be gone up and they'll be down. So we'll be grand.
Yeah, hopefully anyway, touch wood. On that note, which has absolutely nothing to do with women's football in this country, we will leave it for this week. I guess all that's left to say, Eileen, is adios.
Adios.
Adios.